Okay, back for part 2 of problem 5. Remember, we're going to start with what we know. We know in the equation, it says how many grams of precipitate will be produced by the reaction of 10 grams silver acetate dissolved in water. Okay, so let's just go ahead and put that 10 grams of silver acetate down so that we have that. So we have 10 grams of, looking at our chemical equation, silver acetate is just AgC2H3O2. Alright, so that's our starting. So what are we trying to solve for? Well, all we know is that it says precipitate. What do I do there? Well, of the sheets that you have to help you, you have the reactivity solubility. So let's take a look at what was created. So we have silver phosphate. So we're going to find silver over here. There we go. Silver. Okay. It's down here at the bottom. And we're going to go across and find phosphate to see if that is soluble in water. Alright, it says A, soluble in acids, insoluble in water. So that tells me right there that's probably the precipitate because it's not soluble, so it's not going to dissolve, it's going to become a solid inside the water. But let's just double check what our other product was just to see if there's any issues. The other one was sodium acetate, so we're going to go down here, find sodium. There's sodium. We're going to go across and find acetate. It's the very first one, S, soluble in water. So sodium acetate is going to completely dissolve in water, so it is not going to be precipitate. So we know we've figured out what we're solving for, and that's the precipitate, which is going to be silver phosphate because it is insoluble in water. All right. So we know what our end game is. We are looking for silver phosphate, which is the precipitate, and we know that because it's insoluble in water based on your solubility paper. All right, let's get back to the problem. We're starting with what we know. We've got 10 grams, which of course I made that look like 70, but it's 10 grams of silver acetate. Again, what do we know that's associated with grams? That's the molecular mass of that compound in 1 mole. So on the bottom, we're going to add 2 carbon atomic masses plus 3 hydrogen atomic masses plus 2 oxygen to get a grand total of, I'm cheating, 166.944. 166.944 grams of silver C2H3O2. And again, that's how many grams are in 1 mole of silver C2H3O2. Again, you can pause the video, check my addition and multiplication. All right, so again, we're trying to figure out how much of the silver phosphate we have. So we're going to look at the ratios of what we're beginning with, which is silver acetate. So how many moles of that are in this equation? We look at our chemical equation and we have 3 moles. At our balanced equation, it shows we have 3 moles of silver acetate. So we're going to write 3 moles on the bottom so that it cancels the moles out. Alright, yep, because as we go, we always know where to put stuff because we're always wanting to cancel out. We canceled out the grams, and so now we wanted to cancel out the moles. And then on top, we're going to put the ratio of what we're looking for, which is, again, silver phosphate. Looking at our equation, silver phosphate, we have 1. So there's 1 silver phosphate. So we'll put 1 silver phosphate up here. 1 mole silver phosphate, and that is Ag3PO4. Alright, so then we need to get to grams, and so to get to grams, we figure out what the molecular mass of 1 mole of silver phosphate is. So we put 1 mole of silver phosphate down here, and then the molecular mass up here, so that we cancel out the moles and we're left with grams. So 1 mole silver phosphate, and that is, I cheated already and did the molecular mass, which is 4. You can pause and figure it out if you want practice doing that. I was just trying to make the videos a little quicker on parts that you already knew. So 418.67, that is 3 silvers plus 1 phosphate plus 4 oxygens. Yeah. When you're doing this, make sure that you're putting the right number of moles from the equation, and that you're making sure that you have the right, Ag subscript 3. Don't forget that subscript 3, because that's going to mess up your numbers. Alright, so that's going to give us on top 4,186.7, and then on the bottom we're going to have 500.832. That gives us 8.36 grams of silver phosphate. But wait, we're not done. We need to go back in the problem and see if we're solving for a reactant or if we're solving for a product. Alright, so this is how many grams of participate will be produced. Alright, so right there we know that we are solving for a product. We also know that because we solved for what was on the product side. So we know since it's a product, we're going to have to multiply it by that 93% yield. So we take 8.36 times 93%, and it's going to give us 7.77 grams of silver phosphate. Alright. So since it was a product, we had to multiply it by the yield, which was 93%. Alrighty.